If there was ever a Hollywood star who seemed to carry nothing but sunshine wherever she went, it was Doris Day. With her bright smile, warm voice, and girl-next-door charm, she was one of the most beloved actresses America ever produced. But behind all that brightness was a life full of real pain, difficult marriages, financial betrayal, and personal loss. The woman the world saw on screen and the woman who lived her actual life were two very different people. If this kind of story is something you enjoy, the real, unfiltered truth behind famous names, then hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We dig deep into the lives of Hollywood legends every week, and you will not want to miss what comes next. Doris Day was born Doris Marion Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922, in Cincinnati, Ohio. She was the youngest child of Alma Sophia and William Joseph Kappelhoff, a German-American family. Her father worked as a choir director and music teacher, and her mother was a homemaker. Doris had two older brothers, though the eldest had passed away before she was even born. Her father was a gifted musician, and Doris clearly inherited some of that talent. But when it came to warmth and affection, it was her mother who gave her the most love. Her father was emotionally distant, and it was later revealed he had been having affairs. When Doris was just 10 years old, her parents divorced. It was an early lesson that the people you love can let you down, one she would learn again and again throughout her life. From a young age, Doris fell in love with dancing. She was nervous at first, but she pushed through it and quickly showed real talent. She joined a local dance group and began making a name for herself, with many people around her believing she had a genuine future in it. Dancing was her dream, and she was well on her way to chasing it. But then, in a single terrible moment, that dream was taken from her. The night before her family was supposed to move to Los Angeles, Doris and some friends were involved in a horrific accident when a freight train struck the car they were in. She was only 15 years old. The impact shattered her right leg. In her memoir, Doris Day, Her Own Story, she described dragging herself away from the wreckage and then looking down to see the jagged ends of broken bones sticking out through her skin before she lost consciousness. She spent months recovering in the hospital. Doctors were unsure how fully her leg would heal. The dancing career she had worked so hard for was over before it had even properly begun. But something unexpected happened during those long months of lying in a hospital bed. Doris started singing along to the radio. The songs of Duke Ellington, Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, and Tommy Dorsey filled the room, and she sang with all of them. The singer who captured her attention the most was Ella Fitzgerald. There was something in the way Fitzgerald shaped every word, something casual yet clean and precise, that Doris found completely captivating. She would sing along, trying to catch those subtle qualities in her own voice. What had started as something to pass the time during recovery was quietly becoming a new calling. When her mother noticed how naturally the singing came to her, she arranged lessons with a vocal coach named Grace Rain. By just the third session, Rain was convinced that Doris had something truly special. She started offering her 3 lessons a week for the price of 1. 8 months later, Doris landed her first professional singing job as the vocalist on a local radio program called Carlin's Carnival on WLW, and she also performed at a Cincinnati restaurant called Charlie Yee's Shanghai. It was not long before a bigger opportunity found her. During one of her radio appearances, a well-known American bandleader named Barney Rapp happened to hear her. He was searching for a female vocalist for his band and invited her to audition. He had already heard nearly 200 singers before she walked in. He chose her. At the time, she was still going by her birth name, and in 1939, Rapp suggested she come up with something shorter and catchier for radio audiences. Inspired by a song she had performed beautifully called Day After Day, she became Doris Day. The name stuck, and so did her rising career. She began working with musicians such as Bob Crosby, Jimmy James, and Les Brown, eventually touring with Les Brown's band for close to 2 years. During this period, she also provided vocals for Bob Hope's popular weekly radio program. It was during this time that she recorded one of the songs she would forever be associated with, Sentimental Journey.
The track became a massive hit and was widely considered the unofficial anthem of World War II servicemen. Her voice had found her audience. Her path into film came through the impression she made on songwriters Jules Stein and Sammy Cahn, who heard her sing Embraceable You and were blown away. Their enthusiasm helped open the door to Hollywood, and she was recommended for a role in a musical called Romance on the High Seas. She still had to audition just like everyone else, but the film's director, Michael Curtis, personally selected her. When she found out she had the part, Doris was stunned and openly told him she had no acting experience whatsoever. Curtis was not bothered. He told her that her natural, freckle-faced, all-American look was exactly what he wanted.
Her film career took off quickly. She appeared in My Dream Is Yours, On Moonlight Bay, By the Light of the Silvery Moon, and I'll See You in My Dreams, the last of which became her most successful release under Warner Brothers. Between films, her music continued to chart, including a 1953 duet with Frank Sinatra called Young at Heart. She proved she was not just a screen presence, she was a genuine star in multiple lanes at once. Her biggest early breakthrough as an actress came with the 1955 musical romance Love Me or Leave Me, where she starred opposite James Cagney. Her performance earned wide praise, with Cagney himself noting her rare ability to convey genuine emotion without overdoing it. Then, in 1956, she showed audiences an entirely different side of herself by starring in Alfred Hitchcock's thriller The Man Who Knew Too Much. Nobody expected the sunny girl next door to hold her own in a Hitchcock film, but she did, and people took notice. The peak of her Hollywood career arrived with a string of romantic comedies, most famously Pillow Talk in 1959, which earned her the only Academy Award nomination of her career. She starred alongside Rock Hudson and Tony Randall, and the three of them reunited for two more films, Lover Come Back and Send Me No Flowers. By the early 1960s, Doris Day had become the top box office actress in Hollywood. She was only the second woman in history to hold multiple #1 rankings at the box office, a record previously matched only by Shirley Temple. Films like Please Don't Eat the Daisies, That Touch of Mink, The Thrill of It All, and Move Over, Darling all performed strongly. Her final big commercial success was Do Not Disturb in 1965. As the 1960s wore on and Hollywood shifted dramatically toward edgier, more provocative content, Doris found herself increasingly out of step with the new direction the industry was taking. She began stepping back from films, and by the 1970s, she had quietly walked away from the spotlight almost entirely. In an interview with People magazine, she explained that Hollywood had changed into something she no longer recognized or felt comfortable with. She said it was no longer the town she had known, and while she remained open to the right opportunity, she had no desire to keep chasing the spotlight. There was also the matter of the image itself. Doris had spent so many years being cast as the pure, innocent, cheerful girl next door that the role had become a kind of cage. She was once given the unflattering nickname the world's oldest virgin by the press, a label that followed her for years. In a later interview with PBS, she pushed back on that reputation, saying she had always believed that two people should live together before getting married. The saintly image was never the whole truth, and she knew it, even if the public did not. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of the gap between her public image and private reality was her deep insecurity about her own appearance. Despite being considered one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood, Doris genuinely did not believe she was attractive. Director Norman Juvison, who worked with her on The Thrill of It All and Send Me No Flowers, said he was always amazed by this. He found her stunning, as did her fans and colleagues, but she could never fully see it herself. Her co-star James Garner spoke warmly about working with her, saying he preferred her company on set to that of other major stars of the era. He described her as naturally appealing in a way she was completely unaware of, which only added to her charm. When it came to her personal life, Doris Day endured heartbreak 4 times over through 4 marriages. Her first husband was a trombonist named Al Jordan, whom she married at just 17 years old. 2 days after the wedding, he struck her after seeing her receive a gift from one of his bandmates. The violence continued throughout the marriage. Doris later admitted that she would have left him much sooner had she not become pregnant.
While carrying their son, Al Jordan once held a gun to her pregnant stomach as a threat. The abuse was far more severe than anything the public ever knew about. She eventually forced him out of their home in 1943, refusing to be intimidated any longer. Their son, Terry, was born and later took the surname of her third husband. Her second marriage was to a saxophonist named George William Weidler, who introduced her to Christian Science, a faith she continued practicing long after their marriage ended. They wed in March 1946 and divorced in May 1949. Around the same time, Doris was dating a man she had met through her work, a charming, outgoing actor named Ronald Reagan, with whom she later appeared in the 1952 film The Winning Team. In her memoir, she described him as a talented dancer and a naturally gifted speaker, someone whose articulate personality made him seem destined for public life. Her third marriage, to film producer Martin Melcher on April 3, 1951, seemed at first to be the one that would last. Melcher embraced her son Terry as his own and gave him his surname. Doris believed she had finally found her happy ending. But when Melcher died, the truth came out. He had secretly spent nearly her entire fortune and left her deeply in debt. Worse still, he had committed her to projects without her knowledge or consent, including a television series called The Doris Day Show. Doris later recalled how emotionally devastating it was. She was grieving, financially ruined, and suddenly contractually bound to a project she had never agreed to. Her son Terry explained that she had also been signed up for multiple television specials, all without anyone consulting her. Despite her reluctance, The Doris Day Show ran for 5 successful seasons, from 1968 to 1973. She eventually won a lawsuit against Melcher's former business partner, Jerome Rosenthal, who was found guilty of fraud and malpractice, and she was awarded $22 million.
Her fourth and final marriage was to Barry Comden in 1976, a restaurant maitre d' she had met at one of her favorite dining spots. He knew how much she loved animals and won her over by saving scraps and bones from the kitchen for her pets. But that same love for animals eventually became a point of tension between them. Comden reportedly felt that she cared more for her animals than she did for him, and the marriage eventually fell apart. Despite having only one child, Doris's relationship with her son Terry was one of the most important of her life. Terry grew up to become a music producer, and at one point crossed paths with a then unknown musician named Charles Manson, even considering signing him to a record deal. That connection turned dark in 1969 when Manson ordered the infamous murders at a house in Benedict Canyon, a home that Terry and his girlfriend Candice Bergen had previously lived in. Doris heard the news over the radio and soon learned that Manson had a specific hatred for her son. Mother and son were placed under around-the-clock protection. Terry later took over managing his mother's career and described himself as the parent figure in their relationship much of the time. He passed away in 2004 after a long battle with melanoma. Doris later said that the song My Buddy had been written for him, and in a 2011 interview she described him as her closest companion. In her later years, the cause that defined Doris Day's life more than anything else was animal welfare. Her commitment to protecting animals went back to the 1950s, when she witnessed animals being mistreated on the set of The Man Who Knew Too Much. The sight deeply disturbed her, and she refused to continue filming until the animals were properly cared for and feeding stations were set up on set. That moment planted a seed that grew into a lifelong mission. In 1971, she co-founded Actors and Others for Animals alongside Hollywood colleagues including Angie Dickinson, Mary Tyler Moore, and Jane Meadows, a group that took a public stand against the wearing of fur. In 1978, she established the Doris Day Pet Foundation, an independent nonprofit dedicated to animal welfare causes. That organization later became the Doris Day Animal Foundation, or DDAF, and worked in close partnership with another group she founded in 1987 called the Doris Day Animal League. Beyond animals, Doris also lent her name and support to HIV and AIDS awareness efforts, contributing to fundraising and medical research. While many Hollywood stars continued acting and performing well into their later years,
Doris Day made a deliberate choice to step away from fame in her early 50s. She moved to Carmel by the Sea in California and lived quietly, surrounded by her animals and the stray pets she had taken in over the years. She built a peaceful life, far from cameras and red carpets. On May 13, 2019, Doris Day passed away at her home after battling pneumonia. She was 97 years old. The Doris Day Animal Foundation announced her passing, and in keeping with her wishes, no funeral service was held and no grave marker was placed. She had spent her whole career being the warmth other people needed, and in the end, she left quietly and on her own terms. The story of Doris Day is a reminder that the brightest smiles often hide the deepest struggles. She survived abuse, financial betrayal, personal tragedy, and a Hollywood machine that tried to keep her locked in a box that never quite fit who she really was. She was far more complicated, far tougher, and far more interesting than the cheerful image the world was given. That is the real Doris Day, and she deserved to be known.